Greetings ladies and gents, welcome back to the Craft Hammer. I'm your host Stefan, and in today's video, similar as before, we're doing a small mini tutorial to help you, the new beginner, get to grips with some of the basics. In today's video, we are talking about finishing the base itself, the last few finishing touches to help your model bring it all together and make sure that the base pops out. Now for today's video, we have the middle model that just needs a tiny few little additions to make sure that it's not just a plain rock looking base. If you happen to be doing models that are on molded or resin bases, there is a high chance that you don't actually need to do anything that you see in today's video, but we will give you a small example towards the end where we do have a resin base that you can put little additions on top if it makes sense, so that the base doesn't look too bland, even though it's already pre-molded with a specific design. But what we're going to do today is make sure that this base turns into this wonderful base over here that is popping out with some nice little bits of grass tufts and some purple flowers. Let's not take too long, let's go into the tools that are required, which is fairly short. You need some super glue, and of course you need some tweezers. But we can't forget, we also need some sort of pre-made grass or pre-made flower tufts. I'd highly recommend to check your local craft store, make sure that you're helping your local game store, get some tufts from them, some grass, and then it will help pop your bases on the models. So let's get into setting this all up and making sure that we'll show you how to put each one of these on. Now, let's quickly talk about the actual grass and tufts themselves. They do come on this nice little parchment paper just to get them stuck on. They do technically say that you can just pick them off this paper and stick them straight onto the model, but I normally just put a tiny bit extra super glue just to make sure that they're held on sturdy and they don't fly off by any, small accident that might happen. I would definitely recommend making sure that you got pre-made ones. To be honest, it doesn't really make sense to make your own unless you're using them a lot, and then maybe if you're skilled enough to kind of start doing that. Otherwise, I don't really use them that often, so I don't see the point in trying to make my own, hence why I just get these pre-made little patches, and when I need it, just a little addition onto the model itself. Now, as you can see, I do have my scalpel here, mostly because if you're looking to get one of these bigger pieces, and let's say you don't have any of the smaller ones left, you can in fact cut them in half or in 3/4, whatever you might want to do, and then use that to put onto your models. So even though you might get a larger patch here and here, you can obviously cut it off and only use as much as you need. What we're going to do is we're actually going to slightly separate them from the parchment paper itself. As you can see, it does, I don't know if it'll probably show up on the camera, but there is a little sticky patch on the back. We're just gonna leave this here on the side, not too much pressure there so it won't stick back down. And then for this one, I actually think that what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get one of these flowers, put them here on this side, put a bit of grass there, another bit of grass at the bottom, and then I did see that there's a tiny bit of space at the back at the bottom where I'm going to put some grass. Take it off this paper just so that it's kind of ready and easy to pick up with the pluckers. I'm going to try and get one of these flowers. Now this is a bit more difficult as these ones kind of slightly fall apart if you try and cut them too much. Now, one super important thing before we get gluing and putting them onto the base. Now, first and foremost, before we get too far in and we start gluing these little patches onto the model, before you do that, make sure that you've already varnished your model. You don't want to varnish on top of any of these grass tufts or any of these flowers, because the way that the spray will react to these, it will create this frosted effect, and liquid will stick to these and solidify, and it won't look nice, and it will ruin your grass and your flowers. Make sure that the model, which this one already is, has been varnished and is fully complete. This is literally the end step, so you don't want to go back and have to repaint things. You don't want to revarnish any of that. This is after everything is complete. That's when we're going to be doing this. But overall, this is a fairly straightforward thing. So hopefully this is in shot and we can get a bit of light on it. What we're going to do is a quick small, tiny drop of where our flower is going to be. Now I do believe I'm actually running very low, so not too bad. Then we take our tweezers, pick up our flower, and just put it exactly where we are putting it. So that's the flower done. And let's do the other bits of grass, and hopefully I have enough glue left in there to stick the remainder of these. So let me come back with the finished product. So here is the model with the bits of grass added nicely to the little locations. And we do have one tiny one just here, mostly because I saw that there was quite a bit of extra space, and obviously I didn't put any sort of skull or any sort of equipment there, so might as well just put a bit of grass. Now that is one thing that you can think about when you're creating your base itself. Obviously you might have some sort of design to make sure that both of the feet are on the ground and it's as stable as possible, but you can of course then sculpt some of the cork base that you might have to make sure that there's some interesting places where you can either, let's say, put extra rocks, or you're preparing for later on when you want to put some grass and some flowers. Luckily enough, this one had some decent space at the front, and it's not too bad, not too shabby. Now what we're going to do is quickly move over to a resin base that we have. Same thing, we added some flowers and some grass just to make sure that the base itself was popping out a bit more. Now hopefully you can see on this model here, which is a knight for the Chaos Knights, and it's a war dog, and even though this resin base has like a brick texture on it, and we even have some small little bits of broken masonry around, I think there is a statue head at the back, it was still lacking some small things here and there. Now there are tiny leaves that were again sculpted onto the actual resin model, but it still would have created a flat plane on the base, which we don't really want that, hence why we added a bit of grass and some orange flowers here and there to kind of break up the actual base itself. Now what you may have noticed is the flowers on these are orange, while the flowers on the Space Marine were purple. Now the reason is because, as you might see, the actual armor of the war dog here is, I think if I remember correct, this is a very dark blue navy that I was doing on it, while the armor on the Space Marines are red. So I wanted that contrasting color from the base and the armor to make sure that they're not blending in, and hence why we have blue armor, orange flowers, and on the Marines we got red armor and purple flowers. So they definitely help pop in a sense. Hopefully this video has helped you out. You can create your own nice little wonderful bases with the models that you have. It's always nice to add some extra little bits on your bases just to make sure that they're not too bland and they're not too empty. Of course, there's plenty of different ways that you could have done it. Previously, you could have put some skulls when it came to actually initially making your base, and then you do it through the painting process and you get them all nicely done up. But then once you're finished and you've done all that and you've varnished your model, don't forget that there is some grass about here and there on the battlefield and some flowers that pop up. So hopefully this has helped you out. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, really helps us out. Don't forget to like this video, drop your comments down below, and I shall see you in the next one, folks. So until then, take care.